Evening, everyone. It's good to have you all back. This stream is not just for members, so please share the link so that other people in South Africa and around the world can actually watch this content. I've created a playlist called Important Live Streams. And in that playlist are specific live streams open to the public, to the broad public out there, where I discuss very important topics. And this is one of those important live streams. So it'll go into that playlist and you'll be able to watch it there afterwards if you cannot watch throughout the entire period of time. So please share this link. You need to like this video, share this video as much as possible so as many people as possible can see it. And because this channel is being under attack by all sorts of people reporting videos for nothing, to get the algorithms against it, you people counteract it. And even although my video on the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers and all the people that run the country is still limited, it has had over 33,000 views thanks to you. And I really want to thank you for your efforts in making this possible. And hopefully we can get a lot of people into this live stream, because the topic for tonight is extremely important. And, you know, when you actually look at the world out there, a lot of people wish for many things. We wish for all sorts of things. We speak about all sorts of things, and we say, we wish this could happen. We wish that could happen. And the theme for tonight is be very careful what you wish for. And if you look at the thumbnail for this video, you will see the Eiffel Tower lit up, and you will see the colors red, white, and blue. And that specific day that's being celebrated is Bastille Day. And you can go and read up on the history of that. And I thought it was a very important symbology with regards to what I want to speak about tonight. Because for the people in France, they celebrate freedom on their day, being free. And yet today, they have a leader under the system that they believe is better, that have openly declared that freedom is overrated, that people mustn't come to him with a freedom, that they must get vaccinated. And that is the last word I will say on that. But this is the result of Bastille Day many years later. So be very careful what you wish for. And I will go over quite a few things that people wish for that you need to be very careful about. Because once you think it through properly, you could actually be playing into a multi-century long plan to enslave yourself. And I will specifically speak about the French Revolution. I cover the French Revolution in my Moments in Time series. And those of you that have watched that, go and watch it again if you've forgotten. But King Louis is being portrayed in history as the man that let the people down. He didn't give them the financial system they wanted that would give them everything they wanted, when actually what happened is he stood up against a financial system that would be implemented that would enslave the entire nation of France and the rest of the world. He stood up against it and he lost his head with it. His entire family lost their heads. Why? Because he knew that Amschel Rothschild at that time came with a proposal where they would control all the finances in the world and in France, and that way control not only the monarchy, but the people of France. Today, how do the people of France live? They all go to work, they all need money, they are all indebted, and because of that, they are dependent on the government. And this is why their president can say to them that I will take your freedom away because there's something more important. The King of France would not even have done that. So you have to be very careful what you wish for. That financial system spread throughout the world. The Rothschilds went to the King of England and said the same thing. We want to create a central bank in England. If you don't do it, the same thing's going to happen to you that happened to the King of France, King Louis. And if you actually see what happened to King Louis and the perspective that's given by the people portraying this wonderful future of prosperity where everyone will have money. Not money belonging to the Rothschilds and their financial system. And the people will be enslaved because they would have to work their loans and their debts back, not just for themselves, but for their country as well, and for their governments. And we have been doing that now for centuries. King Louis had the insight at the time to know that even if it's an unpopular thing, he made a decision to say, people of France, don't let these people come here and fool you into wanting things, because you're just going to say, yes, give it to me, give it to me. One day you will lose all your freedom. And this has happened. So it's kind of prophetic. I give a new perspective on history as well as the future. My perspective, and my perspective is very different to the mainstream. Because when you look at historical facts and how they are playing out today, it is very clear that people have been taken for a ride, a serious ride. And I will later come back into South Africa and speak about how we are being taken for a ride now and how you need to be very careful what you wish for. I will be speaking about secession. I will be speaking about Cape Town saying that it needs to be separate from the national grid, that we just need independent power producers. I will tell you how that will end up. It might look wonderful now. It might sound wonderful. It's a politician speaking. It's a person speaking that wants you to pay for that service, and they want you enslaved to it, so that at the end of the day, they have more control and more power. Now, after King Louis and his family was killed off, the system that came into power after that had far more power over the citizens of France. The only difference is they were given things, material things. And those material things, they were enough to enslave these humans to the system. And they actually had no problem living in that system and being promised a retirement one day, being promised a nice retirement where one day they don't have to work and you can rest when you're older than 60. In France, actually, they retire earlier than that. I know specifically in the nuclear industry, they retire much earlier. Some of them at 50, some of them at 55. In South Africa, you have to carry on working till you almost have one foot in the grave, and then you are retired. I have not seen a single person in the nuclear industry that were highly paid that could retire, that had sufficient funds to do that, because you will never be given enough for you to be self-reliant. The state and large corporations will never give you enough to be self-reliant. And King Louis knew this. Now, either as a monarch, you love your people, or you don't love your people. So you hear of good monarchs and you hear of bad monarchs. And it depends on how they looked after their people. And we're going to be talking about what people need before they explode. And this is very important. And I also want to talk about something else that happened in England. If you look at the peasant rebellion of 1381, you need to go and look at that history, how normal people literally lost it with emissaries of government that wanted tax from them. And at one stage, even chopped off 6 people's heads, and it got worse from there, spread throughout vast areas of England, where normal people stopped believing in government. And this is a very important point I want to bring across. When do people stop believing in government? When is law no longer your law? In other words, common law, what the people want. And how does that play out? And how can it potentially play out in a South African scenario and in other countries around the world? I'm not going to keep it too long. I won't take more than another 20 minutes. And in this time, I really hope that you will listen. And if you are enthralled in a chat or in a separate thing on the side, I'm not going to look at the chat now, then hopefully you'll watch this video later to actually listen to what I have to say with regards to my perspective on history as well as the future. If you look at what has happened in the world throughout the ages. When people don't have water and food and you treat them badly, you treat them badly in a physical way, in a mental way, they will in the end revolt against you. This is a given. You cannot get away from that. So, as long as people are given food, water, and they are not abused mentally and physically too badly, they will just carry on like sheep and think that this is fine, that this is the apex of their existence. It is absolute madness. We need to live more fulfilling lives. But in the system that I'm sure Rothschild created, this was never possible. This was also never the intention. They were going to create a shadow government that is sitting there today, a committee of 300 people that are running everything in the world, that is superior to governments. And this shadow government will make all decisions and enable things around the world, especially in governments around the world, that will make the people revolt against them, revolt against governance, revolt against government because of starvation of water and food. They will be mentally tortured, not physically tortured, mentally. They will be broken down. Physically, they will in the end be broken down, and people get to a snapping point. And when they snap, things get ugly, very ugly. And you cannot control what happens when we get to that point. So always be very careful what you wish for. And I quickly want to cut back now, before I speak about Russia and the Tsars, to the African National Congress, which is the ruling party. Most people will moan and bitch about the African National Congress like you cannot believe. They were put there by global elites to ruin the country. That's the end of the story. That was the only reason why the ANC is in government today. They were put there. They never had the capability or the ability to be put there. Never. The people that they are employing, the people that are elected by the party system, and this is why the party system was chosen, those people are useless, literally useless, with here and there a person that can speak sense from time to time. But if you actually have to compare these people to people that we could use for governance as representatives, it is a shocking chasm that will be in between the mind space of the person sitting in parliament now and what we can have sitting there to represent us. This was deliberate. So the African National Congress is just a puppet gang. That's all they are. The same as the DA, the EFF, and many of the others that are. Those that haven't made a difference and a change to the system, they have been meaningless, totally meaningless to change in the country. And that is why what Lindiwe Sisulu wrote, even with her plagiarism or not, is very relevant. And she actually quoted a very important quote. When is the rule of law not the law of the people anymore? When do the people decide that they have now had enough? And the irony is that happens wherever people decide that they won't follow the law anymore. It doesn't have to be a national thing. In England in 1381, it spread from one place and spread like wildfire all over the place. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have internet. The one person in the one town couldn't directly communicate with a person in the next town 100 kilometers away. People sent messages from town to town, but every person in his town decided what they were going to do and that they were fed up with the laws that were being imposed on them, that they felt abused physically and mentally, they felt overburdened financially, and they were struggling, and they snapped and they went berserk and they did crazy things. Go and look at that history. This is not Africa I'm speaking about now. This is the United Kingdom I'm speaking about. And later, I'll touch on the suffragette movement, just so people understand what women did in the UK to get the right to vote not so long ago. In fact, it was in the last century. that women blew up things, set things alight, attacked government institutions to get the right to vote to be noticed. Now, should we call them savages? Should we call them looters and pillagers? What do we call them? This was the United Kingdom. This was not KwaZulu-Natal. It was not any other place where people ransacked buildings or stole things. Sorry, it's very hot inside here. It was the United Kingdom. And this has happened in many other places around the world and is happening in other places around the world. Look at Kazakhstan at the moment. Who is in control? Who is in charge? And the answer is nobody. Anyone that tells me that one citizen that doesn't have any specific movement, any specific ideal, has any control in that country. People are just flippant doing what they want, wherever they want. There is no control. And when a bunch of vigilantes take over in a country, you just get another crappy government. You don't get anything better. So be very careful what you wish for. The devil you know can be better than the one you don't know. And if we get any kind of vigilante situation in this country, I will go to my plan C immediately, and it's every man for himself. That is why we have to avoid that at all costs. So, if you look at the suffragette movement in the United Kingdom, where women, sophisticated women, hardworking women that were literate, decided we cannot vote. The men in parliament said, not a chance are we going to allow a woman to vote. It's not happening. They are stupid. They belong at home. Men belong in parliament, not women. They had arguments about this in the 1900s. In fact, not that long ago. So think about this. There's probably people still saying things like that. That women had to rise up and revolt against the government. It took one woman on the day that the Queen was at the horse races and a woman ran in front of the Queen's horse. That killed her. It was never the plan for that woman to die. She didn't plan to die, but the impact was so severe that she perished. And at a funeral, the people of Britain came in their masses. And then the House of Lords realized that, listen here, the people are deciding that they actually supporting this idea that women should vote. So what the people are saying is what the government must do. That is how it is. I always still say, be careful what you wish for, so that you don't end up the way France ended up, where they now have a tyrant for a president in the name of health and safety, where that president decides that if you don't do X, Y, Z for your health, you are an excrement of society. We do not want you as part of our society, and we will torture you mentally, physically, with how you live in society until you do what we say. Where is the freedom in that? I wonder what King Louis would think about what is happening in France right now. He must be thinking, you stupid fools. You had no idea what you were giving up when you gave up this kingdom. The same thing happened in Russia. The same people were behind it. The Rothschilds. Tsar Nicholas I was told by Nathan the Rothschild in his face that because you won't accept the central banking system in Russia, we will destroy your bloodline. We will end it. And with Tsar Nicholas II, the entire family was executed. If you actually understand that history, then you will know how easy it is to manipulate people, the sheepish people in society, and make them believe that if you're going to be given things so that you can drink water, eat food, and the government and the corporations give these things to you, you can't supply it for yourself, that you will now live a fulfilling life. How has that worked out for us? How has that worked out for us? It was always going to turn over many decades to the point where a gun will now be held to your head and you will be told, if you don't do X, Y, Z, you are not going to get water, food, you're not going to travel in your car, you're not going to get fuel for your car. There's many things you're not going to get. We're not going to force you to do X, Y, Z, but if you don't do it, this will be the consequence. So how do we avoid in South Africa when Jordan Hill-Lewis, the currently elected mayor of Cape Town, we didn't elect the idiot, his party chose him as the mayoral candidate. I had the unfortune to have actually met with him in the past to see how he was controlled by many people. And you know, as young as he is, he's as sly as a fox. And when he goes out and he tells people we need independent power producers and we will stop load shedding, he's a complete and utter idiot. Be careful what you wish for, because he will cripple the entire industrial complex within Cape Town. Because he does not understand electricity production, he does not understand grids, he does not understand generators. He knows nothing about it, in fact. He was trained in finances and he's been in parliament his whole life as a career politician because he's Helen Zille's golden boy. So when you listen to someone like him, and it sounds wonderful what he's saying, it sounds like he's saying all the right things, like the people in France back in the day when they heard that the Rothschilds will come there, we will give you all these loans, we'll give you all these goods, you will get everything your heart desires. They didn't say, well, one day we'll take all your freaking freedom away. They didn't say that. And neither will Jordan Hill-Lewis. He's not going to say, oh, but we're going to have to close down all these factories because we won't be able to supply enough power for them. He's not going to tell you that. So be careful what you wish for. If the ANC government is just overthrown or toppled for whatever reason, and so many people talking about it, do you think for one moment that the masses of people that have supported the ANC will just lay down and relinquish that power? Really? Only a fool will believe that. A fool. So be very careful what you wish for. If you do not go and one by one speak to people and convert them to a new way of thinking, to want a direct election system where we elect our leaders directly, if you do not convert people to that thinking first, it will fail. The ANC will be there forever. As long as they serve the purpose of the international elites, they will be there. They can also be removed if someone else will fulfill that role for them. Enter Secession in the Western Cape and the Democratic Alliance. And the entire state concept, having states all over the country, just like the United States of America, we will have the United States of South Africa, or federalism. And the DA has said openly that they support federalism. The Freedom Front Plus have openly said that they support secession. Why? You need to understand what is going on behind the scenes. It is another Bolshevik revolution. It is another French revolution. Do not be fooled. How will these people govern you in future? Will you be free? Do they want you to be independent, self-reliant, or do they want to govern you their way? Be very careful what you wish for. Now, I don't want any of the parties in government that's there currently, none of them, because none of them have changed the system we find ourselves in. The very system that was designed to get us into the situation we're in now. And Lindiwe Sisulu said a couple of very important things. She said that the constitution is not working for the people of South Africa. She's absolutely right. Her meaning to that might be very different to mine, but she's right. She also said that the judiciary is captured. She's 100% correct. The judiciary is captured. And the court of public opinion will make that decision. I don't have to listen to Raymond Zondo telling me that Lindiwe Sisulu didn't go and substantiate or give any specific reason. The public can decide, because in the end, we are the law. Any one person is not the law, but we are the law. The people are the law. What we do goes. However, be very careful what you wish for, how we transition this government, because now that this transition speak is everywhere, you have to be very careful for the wolves in sheep's clothing. What are these people promising you? Look at the 10 points that I put out just before the local government elections to see whether that entity supports freedom. Do they want more power, or do they work towards relinquishing power? If you look at most people out there today, they want all the power. They are savior figures that are promising you all sorts of things. Be careful what you wish for. Because if your wish is not that you and your family are as self-reliant or as independent as possible on your own, you will not make what is coming your way. Because you will be depending on that fool that claims to be your savior, and there's so many of them out there. You will be depending on that fool. And that's why I tell people, don't ever depend on me. It's the worst person to depend on. I'm not going to help you. I stated categorically. All I can do is give you information. All I want you to do is to help yourself. Because when you're helping yourself, you don't have to be careful of what you are wishing for. You need to be hardworking at achieving what you need to achieve. And that is self-reliance and independence from government and corporate control. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a government. I'm not saying there shouldn't be corporations, but they should not control your life, and only you can do that. You don't go to the government and say, don't control my life. You don't go to a corporation and say, don't control my life. You stop supporting the corporation, and they'll have absolutely no effect on your life. And you tell other people to do the same. That becomes the court of public opinion. And then you change a society completely, and it can happen very quickly. However, if you do this in a rapid way, such as the French Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, or what happened in KwaZulu-Natal, these things are instigated. And once they get out of control, there is no way of getting control back. It's not possible. And anything can happen. And you're immediately at plan C. You're in a Mad Max situation where it's every man for himself. So let's go back to France. Let's look at Bastille Day, where the French celebrated breaking people out of this prison. And this was their complete and utter moment of freedom. It symbolized a moment where they were free from this monarchy. King Louis, who is a sadistic person that locked up people that wanted to throw the whole country into a revolt. When those people were released, the revolt just escalated to the point where the royal family was executed. Now, I'm not saying King Louis was a good person. Don't mistake me. But he had the insight to know that he doesn't want to hand his country to the Rothschilds. And he lost his head for it. He didn't want to hand his country to the Rothschilds. Now, the Rothschilds promised everyone prosperity. We are going to give you this financial system where all of you will be able to make loans. We are going to establish banks. Banks can loan from banks. We will fund those banks. We'll fund the governments. We'll have full control over governments around the world. And we'll establish a shadow government in the background to run the entire planet. We'll make sure that all the monarchies are involved in that shadow government, the Committee of 300, so that people feel included. These monarchies feel included, those that are seen, deemed as important. So the entire British monarchy sits on the Committee of 300, except for Harry. Even his brother, William, the traitor, decided to sit on the committee, and his mother must be turning in a grave. However, these people think that they are saving the planet. They think that everything they do for us is to improve our lives. We will give you more. We will get you to consume everything we can. And then we're going to complain about plastic in the ocean. We're going to complain about the ozone layer. We're going to complain about the planet eating up. We're going to complain about all of these things. But we want you to consume, 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 consume. We want your entire life to be built around consumption, because that is how we psychologically fooled you in the first place. We said, you can have this cushy job. We will give you a loan that you could pay off over the rest of your life. We will bond you, and then you will get things that you normally couldn't acquire. You will jump a couple of levels in stature. You won't be a peasant anymore. We will create a middle class. And maybe there's a lower middle class, and an upper middle class. But we will create classes in society that you can aspire to. And the more you become part of the system and embrace the system, the more you will make money, because you will use the banks, you will throw away your soul, and you will become a heartless villain, extracting more consumerism out of other people and taking normal life away from them. Most people today don't even know what it means to live anymore, because they are trying to survive from paycheck to paycheck. They have become so focused on that system that they don't know how to do anything else anymore. They don't know what else they can do in their lives. So once again, be careful what you wish for. That fancy car that you're wishing for, that fancy house that you're wishing for, many of the things that you are wishing for, that'll tie you down for the rest of your life to a system that enslaves you absolutely. And if we don't change that system, you will never be freed from it. But you see, like I always say, our children is the main target. So how do you control a society to the point where they wish for these things that takes their freedom away? How do you do that? Because it was the only way we could transition towards a one world government. You teach them from young, in school, at home, at church or mosque or wherever, about status. You see classes and different statuses. You behave in different ways and say, yes, I'm an upper class person. I'm not going to marry that person. I won't even go out with that person. I will classify myself. And because of the separation within society, all of a sudden, people start competing with each other within a system that has enslaved them. And all they will do is consume more and more things. That's all they will do. That's all you will know what to do. Next, you want that Ferrari. Next, you want that super yacht. Nothing will ever be enough, ever, in that system. So once you're caught up in that Rothschild financial system and you are using the system and the system is enriching you, then you will never be able to turn back. You will be so enslaved to that system, because the moment you leave it behind, it'll spit you out harder than you can ever imagine. The people that don't want to live in that system, there's millions of them in South Africa, will suffer for it. You won't own land. You will not be able to get a good job if you didn't go to some good school, if you didn't get some good grades. You are less of a human because of that. What have we become? Why are we not just humans with compassion, humanity, and all the basic things that us humans need? The 5 things we need for survival: water, food, shelter, energy, and something to keep you sane. That doesn't include a super yacht. It doesn't include the fanciest car in the world. It doesn't include any of those things. Just being a human born on earth should be good enough for people to love you, care for you, and let you live a fulfilling life. And for that, you don't need to eat out at the best restaurants. You are good enough if you can survive. So be very careful what you wish for. I will take a couple of questions and then we will finish up this live stream. I'm sweating profusely. It's quite hot in here. I've really enjoyed this live stream. This is really something I wanted to get off my chest and something we need to be very careful of. Be very careful what you wish for, because what your children will experience and their children will experience will show you later that you could have made horrific mistakes because your main focus was not the 5 things you need for survival and freedom, the right to choose. There is nothing more sacred on earth than your right as an inherent human being, the day you are born, to be able to choose things. And in the first years of your life, your parents are looking after you. You are receiving your first artificial intelligence from parents that lie to you, that deceive you, and many other things, because this was built into society. Teachers lying to children about what is best for them in future. You need to become a technologist. You need to become a computer scientist. You need to become a programmer. Those are the things that will give you money. The teacher won't teach you what are the things that can make you happy. Art, music, all of those things that feed the soul are just thrown by the wayside. And you need to ask yourself why. We are in the final swap over point, building up to the year 2030, where your child will be like an android. You are already an extension of your phone. So be very careful what you wish for. When you say, I wish that I can afford to give my child a cell phone, be very careful what you wish for. Evelyn says they dammed up our rivers, the source of life, and forced us into concentrated areas with no land. Absolutely. One day I thought I could not go on like this. I went to court to get an interdict. It didn't work. I gave up hope. Yeah, Ellen Pakis. Louis Toy, we have our human rights. I know what that life is like. I do my homework by reading what the evil plan is. People living under communism are totally controlled with no freedom at all and misery. The sad thing is that a lot of people that believe they live in a democracy, like in South Africa, we don't have democracy. We are living in various forms of communism, socialism, etc. We always have been in South Africa. And that is why I don't like to classify systems. If you look at how we're living right now, yeah, it's bad. Michael, possibly your most powerful argument yet. I hope and pray that sanity prevails, not only in South Africa and the rest of the world. You know, history tells us how people behave, humans behave. And the one thing I've learned about South Africa is that the majority of people in this country are not dependent on that system that enslaves us. So, yes, they are considered poor. They are classified poor, but they are immensely rich in freedom. And freedom can be dangerous because it needs to be used responsibly. And this is why I always tell people be very careful what you wish for. Barbara says the system can only be fixed from the bottom up. Absolutely, it begins now. I want to turn that around. We are at the top. So from the top down, you turn that pyramid on its head, Barbara. We have to turn that pyramid on its head and we have to be the base at the top, and that tip at the bottom needs to feel a lot of pressure. You know, when you have this large base and you have this little tip at the bottom, the people that want to put themselves forward to be our representatives, and not in the current system, we have to change that system, will feel immense pressure. T. Christie, we need to base our decisions on values and principles. Absolutely. Robert Martin, excellent chat. Thank you. I really want to thank all of you for joining me. I don't want to make this much longer. I want a lot of people to view this. So please like this video and share it with as many people as possible. Those of you that have come in later, watch it from the beginning. This is close to my heart. This is part of the important live stream series. It'll be in that playlist. So you can go and find the others and please go and watch them. This one will probably also be restricted. The one on Angie Mutshekga and the school system, only recently I won my appeal. My appeal on the other video on the 4 families that control the country has been under review now for more than 2 weeks. But it's had over 33,000 views. Many of the other videos that were restricted, they battle to get views. So share them as much as possible. The videos in that playlist, go and watch those that you haven't watched yet. This is open to the public, to everyone in the public. So it's important to me that you share this with people. And I'm not telling you what to do. I am giving you my perspective on history as well as the future. And I want you to decide what you are going to do, because that is what's important, and how you are going to do things. And remember, there's nothing in the world that trumps these 5 things: water, food, shelter, energy, and something to keep you sane. If you are not investing your time and efforts into that, you will not survive the future that you will face. You will not survive it. Your kids will not survive it. Your grandkids will not survive it. So, people, thank you for joining. Good night. I hope you have a great weekend. I'm going to be hardworking this weekend. I'm busy with extremely important, very complicated things to try and help stabilize the power grid in South Africa, and to ensure that we don't have blackouts, that we don't have, or have as little load shedding as possible. I'm intricately involved with that. So I get really furious when people that want to be part of renewable energy projects in the wrong place, because you should become as energy independent as you can be. But don't come and tell me, as the mayor of Cape Town, that independent power producers can supply the cities more than 3,000 megawatts and do it consistently. It is only a fool that says things like that. It's not an expert, and it's really sad that people lap up things like that. So once again, be careful what you wish for. Good night.